All right, so Hansei is the Japanese word for reflection, and this is actually part of our PDCA cycle. So this is a graphic that we're all familiar with. We talked about this in our training. We review this every once in a while, but the PDCA cycle is basically a methodology for continuous improvement, for trying things out. So first thing you do is you plan. What am I going to do? What's going wrong? What do we need to fix? What do we want to improve? So you plan your attack. You decide, you brainstorm, you decide what you're going to do. You plan for who's going to do it, when are we going to do it, what are we going to accomplish, what are we going to measure, all those things. And then you go into the do portion of the cycle where you test something out. And then you go into the check portion of the cycle where you review all the data that you generated, everything that you've learned, and say, did we learn something new? Did we make an improvement? And if the answer is yes, then you act on that. You take action, you put that into place, you create a standard, you train your team, and then you continue that cycle. So this is a way to think of the continuous improvement process. And where Hansei falls in is it's really this check portion. But I think Hansei means a little bit of a broader view. So not just for everything that you do, not every little change that you make necessarily, although it is a valuable practice. But Hansei is something that Toyota definitely does anytime they make an improvement. Toyota is a huge company, multi-billion-dollar company. They only make about 1,000 improvements a year, so they're very diligent on what they do. But they're also very serious about the process and the expectation for the results. So that's a pretty interesting take. And because of that, they spend a lot of time doing this Hansei portion, doing this check portion to really understand what they did. So it's all about the power of reflection, and self-awareness really truly is the first step to improvement. So if you don't have a good read on where you're at, then it's really hard to measure where you're going and if you're going in the direction that you want to go or not. And as we all know, we want to make decisions not based on emotion, like this feels good or I like this, but we want to make decisions based on facts, hard numbers, good data, research, videos, SOPs, processes of others. We want to use logical, duplicatable, scientific tools to make our improvements. And so a lot of that starts with self-reflection, self-awareness. And whenever we do a group project together, what's the first thing that we always do? What's the first thing that we capture? You guys remember what we always say? We capture reality. So that's what we always want to do. That's what self-awareness is all about. Capture reality. You know, we're coming up on January 1st. Step on the scale, see where you're starting out at. If you want to improve that number, you got a number to move from, hopefully in the right direction. So where this meets Japanese philosophy is that they're really good at reflecting and acknowledging their mistakes and then pledging improvement. So this is kind of the Toyota model for Hansei. So if you have mistakes, acknowledge them. Yes, I made a mistake, or yes, that didn't go right. And then pledge improvement. I will get better. Yes, that went wrong, but I will improve from there. And then when it comes to successes, accept successes with modesty and humility. So, it's not, don't break out the champagne and go crazy. No, accept your successes with modesty and humility. And then you always want to understand what went wrong, what went right, and what are we going to do differently next time. Those are the three key takeaways that you always want to reflect on. And I will say that when you are doing continuous improvement or making any changes, that you should anticipate mistakes and problems and expect that those are going to happen. When you do that, you are a lot better at riding that wave of emotions that happens when things don't go right. But also, it puts you into that logical mindset where now you can say, okay, well, this didn't go right, so therefore we're going to change that and see if that gets us closer to the goal. So that's what we mean when we talk about the opportunity in mistakes and problems. So always be looking for that opportunity. But really, what we want are these three key takeaways right here. What went right? What went wrong? What are we going to do differently next time? And as leaders, we all have to own this process. This is something that we all do. Everyone in this meeting right now, own this. This is something that we all do no matter what. And the key point over here is that if you have a good process, you get good results. We all know that for all the processes that we've outlined over the last year in our shop and all the different improvements that we made, that when we have a good process in place, a clear process, we get a good, predictable, and expected result. So similarly, when you do these reflections, when you have that self-awareness and you look for those takeaways, if you take the time and are diligent in that, you get good output that's really valuable and will help you course correct and go in the direction you want to go moving forward. So I like to refine all of this down to this question right here. You guys have heard me ask this 100 times. What's the one thing? What's the one thing that you want to remember? What's the one thing that you want to improve? What's the one thing you want to do differently? What's the one thing you want to keep doing? What's the one thing you want to do more of, less of, whatever it may be? I think it's valuable to refine it down to one thing. So I've always been a student of professional development books ever since I was a teenager or even younger, maybe even 10 years old or so. My parents made me read books. I did it of my own volition as well. But I would always take notes, highlight 100 things. Sometimes I'd look at my page and it would be more highlighted than not highlighted. And guess what? I didn't remember much of that. And so when I was a little bit older, I changed my strategy after I learned about the importance of Hansei and the one thing. And I just said, okay, well, I'm going to read this entire 200-page book. And out of these 200 pages, there's going to be one thing in here that's going to be the most impactful, most important to me. And that's the thing, that's the gold nugget that I want to uncover and I want to hold on to. And so rather than try to get a little bit of a dozen things, I'd rather get all of one thing and get really good at that. And this is where the Japanese philosophy really excels and helps in continuous improvement. So we often try to focus on too many things. And when we do that, it reduces our effectiveness. So the Kaizen approach is to just say, what's just one thing that I can take away from this? What's just one thing that I can improve or change moving forward? So when we choose to focus on one thing, we can do it much more effectively than trying to focus on everything. So if you are interested in this idea, there's a great book by Gary Keller called The One Thing. That's where this whole idea even comes from. But there's a lot of parallels to Kaizen and continuous improvement. So I recommend that if you guys are looking for a book to read over the holidays. But I'm going to leave you guys with this. And when we get back together, we're going to discuss this and I'll have you guys share. So when we think about the last year, everything that has happened, for a lot of you guys, we haven't been together for the whole year. So what has happened in the last year as far as, group projects, discussions, shop activities, improvements and changes you've made or anything else? What is your continuous improvement one thing from the last year, from 2022? So think about that. Think about everything that's happened. It could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, could be things that went right, could be things that went wrong. But think about everything that's happened in relation to continuous improvement and all the different things that we've done or you've done on your own. And what is the one thing that you want to take with you and never forget into the next year and into the future? And then along with that, what is your focus going to be for 2023? So practice that good Hansei in relation to continuous improvement. What went right? What went wrong? What do I want to do differently? Think about that. We'll share that when we get back together, guys. But that is the principle of Hansei. And truly, it is one of the most powerful tools that we have to move forward intentionally and truly improve not only ourselves, but our efforts in continuous improvement, our organizations, and any other area in which you want to improve.